Hey, I've shown this before. It's a Walther made Colt 1911 22. And I like this gun. You know, for a 22, it's very accurate. I'm just comfortable shooting. You know, 22 pistols could be a problem, but this one, it's big enough. It's got the right feel to it. But what I really wanted, you know, I always wanted to get a 45, but I wanted a plain Jane version. I'd like to have gotten the government issue one, but they're hard to find and expensive. So I've thought about the Remington R1. You know, that's a pretty basic gun. And I was looking at them, but there was a few things about them I didn't care for. And for the same money, I could get a Springfield. So I got the Springfield, the Mil-Spec. And, you know, it came with the wood grips. First thing I did was take them off and put the plastic wood grips that came with it on. And it came with 2 magazines. But, you know, very nice, straightforward, not a lot of fancy. It does have the 3-dot sights, but they're usable. You know, my 22 doesn't have any dots at all, and I get by just fine with that. So I've been playing around with this some, and I like it. You know, like I say, for the money, because what I really wanted was that government model, but you know, the old GI ones are hard to find at any reasonable price. So this is what I went with, and I've been happy with it. You know, it's a good, solid hitting gun. But she's kind of, again, you know, me and automatics don't get along because of the whole flinging the brass all over the place. This one does that too. I'm sure I won't find half the brass. And these are the, you know, that full metal jacket. But if I can find the brass, I'll reload them with lead, because they tend to really go off of that gong. But she, like I say, she hits solid. And this is, I'm shooting at about 30 yards. Talking there, I wasn't keeping track. But I'm pretty happy with it. You know, like I say, it's pretty plain Jane. But that's exactly what I was looking for. I didn't need, you know, any of the fancy doodads, and I will never be putting the fancy doodads on it. It'll be just like it is. But, you know, good looking gun. You know, one of the things I didn't like about the Remington one, you see how like this has got a kind of a shinier finish? The Remington was that way too. I like, this is a more of a gray. You know, it's a dull finish. The only thing, it's got that stainless steel bushing on it, but I'm getting that soldered up, so it won't bother me much anymore. But I've wanted one of these for years, and I always used to look at the Springfield ones because I at one time I had bought one of those M6 survival rifles back when Springfield used to make them, and in their catalog it showed these, you know, and I kept thinking, boy, I'd kind of like to have one of them. And I've been itching to get one ever since. Well, now I got one. And I got a couple hundred rounds of 45, so I'm going to play with it. Well, I would have to say it's encouraging. I found over half the brass. It turns out when this thing is ejected, if I'm standing by the fender, they land on the seat inside the vehicle. So that's a good deal, but this is a close-up look at what it is. Like I say, a likeable gun. I didn't care for the wood grips, but these are all right. You'll be seeing more of that. The ammunition I was shooting was that Blazer brass. And, it's reasonable ammunition. I bought a couple hundred rounds of it. But I don't think I'm going to shoot a lot of it at the gong because I don't like, I was seeing these things fly, when I hit the gong, these little discs of lead and pieces of jacket would fly up in the air. Well, I don't need them spreading out in the grass or the critters will eat them. These are a couple that just went in the sand. And they, hardly deformed at all. But the ones that hit the gong, just pancakes. But that isn't a good thing to have laying in the grass, so I'll have to shoot them into the backstop so I can recover, because that's a good chunk of lead too that I don't want to waste. So I think that's enough of the gong for those. They're just too messy, but I'll put them in the backstop. Try it on paper.